The EVE Frontier NDA has been relaxed, and now I can finally talk to you about all the things I've been trying not to spoil. And today we're going to discuss its similarities to EVE and indeed its differences to the favorite game we know and love. Should you care about EVE Frontier? Well, hopefully this video is going to help answer that question. Ladies and gentlemen, Loru here, digital advertiser, content creator, and EVE enjoyer. For the better part of 10 years now, maybe one day we'll be able to say 10 years about EVE Frontier in the future. So let's start at the top. There's a lot of similarities between EVE Online and EVE Frontier. From the outside looking in, but the moment you start playing the game, that all evaporates. The game plays very distinctly to EVE Online and feels very much like EVE Online's cousin than it does EVE Online 2.0. This section of the VOD of the recent Feral Moon Eater fight, think of this as a giant raid boss inside of EVE Frontier. The players were actually placing a player-owned Stargate on grid with this thing to be able to try to warp everybody in. The fact this is in alpha and you can already do this kind of stuff was just a lot of fun. So when I say feels like EVE Online's cousin, what do I mean? Well, the first thing is you can't really zoom out. You can't get a big battle grid view of the space. CCP Jotun's got one here just because he's showing off the Feral Moon Eater. It makes you really feel like you're in that ship and gives you a little bit more permanence. You're going to hear me use that word a lot because that is one of the main differences between EVE Frontier and EVE Online. More on that in just a sec. There is a toggleable UI instead of an overview that you're normally used to in EVE Online. You can see right above Jotun's head here, there's a travel build with those two keys. Clicking those is going to toggle various UI elements. It's going to enable warpables to appear on your screen versus things you can actually place and build. You can actually build in the area around you. You can see most of the little stationary triangles that's being displayed right here are actually player-owned structures that they've dropped down, crafters, printers, literal 3D printers in space, making your various items. I'm not going to go into the little details about how crafting works, how all that stuff goes, because the reality is anything I talk about can be changed. This is pre-alpha footage, so instead of telling you all that, what I'll tell you is you can just go craft stuff in space after you place down an actual structure. I know that showing the Feral Moon Eater, it kind of looks like a bit of a cluster where all of these little boxes are ships and warpables and collidables, whatever, but I promise you it actually feels way more intuitive than it looks when you're actually using the system itself. And if you think about it, most MMOs actually work like this, where there's a bunch of mobs on your grid or on your user interface, let's say, and instead of interacting with an actual menu, which is what you do in EVE Online, you're interacting with that specific ship. The boxes around it, the triangle around it, whatever, is just showing you where that is in relation to you. All right, so next point, it's still really early on. There isn't a ton to do. This is one of my biggest critiques of the critics of EVE Frontier, is that there's a lot of people comparing this game to EVE Online. I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a good idea. Reality is this is a pre-alpha game, and while the structure is there, comparing it to a fully finished game and saying which one's better, EVE Online is going to win every time. What are we talking about here? The core of the game is good. I can tell you that. No NDA there. The core of the game is fun and enjoyable. It plays like EVE Online and feels distinct with all that said. Just like with the EVE Vanguard, they have a really good base to go off of. I would tell you if it wasn't. This was one of my biggest fears. Actually playing the alpha and actually checking out stuff was like, all right, is this going to be good? Is it going to be super buggy? Is it going to be not so snappy? No, it was actually pretty awesome and pretty fantastic to warp around. New map, new areas, new system. I enjoyed my time. I was having fun poking around and seeing what the Frontier has to offer. And speaking of interaction, there is some player interaction that's already going on. There's already been a bunch of big fights, some notable events. Big brawls, big fights, corporations and alliances are already taking over areas of the Frontier, defending their borders, doing the typical stuff you're used to from an EVE Online endgame. Except now the twist is at scale, all if not most of the assets they generate in-game, yes, will be able to be sold on the blockchain. We'll get into that. I'm showing you this to show you that even now in the alpha, there is player engagement. There is stuff happening. It's not just you alone in the universe warping around with a bunch of NPCs. The Discord's very active, the systems are very active, and of course,
you are never safe in EVE Frontier.
Now you can go to EVE Frontier's website and pay now to go play the alpha version of the game, and I'm gonna tell you right now, don't do this if you're even 1% skeptical. It's not worth it. It's not something you should be doing. I've done this, and I'm gonna review the game as best I can to help you make an informed decision. We're all about empowering the viewers here. I'm not trying to sell you a pack to a game that isn't out yet. So if you're skeptical even a little bit about this game, just give it a year or two. There's nothing wrong with you waiting if you want to check out the game in a couple years. And if you never check out the game, that's fine too. All right, let's talk about the Web3 element of the game. I did not see it as a hindrance, albeit I did not use a ton of the Web3 stuff. I haven't even connected my wallet yet. I know. CCP Jotun, please don't get mad at me. I was just checking out the game. I wanted to experience what the game was. That was my primary concern. Is the game fun? And as it is right now in the alpha, it was very much not like in your face, the main thing, Web3, it was not a big deal. I was able to play the game and not have to worry about it. Now in the game, there is a connectable wallet that lets you connect to your Web3 wallet that is out of the game. This essentially replaces the Plex box that was in your wallet earlier. And I'm super excited about this because I literally use Plex basically as a cash investment anyway. And now when I play Frontier, hopefully if it launches in Jesus' name, I can actually use this Web3 currency as another way to make some income and invest some things. I already buy items in EVE Online and then wait 9 months to sell them. I want to do the same thing in EVE Frontier. Now, there's a lot to be said about Web3, about monetization. We're actually going to interview the EVE devs shortly after this video is published. Make sure you check out the description. I'm going to put it in the description whenever this launches. That way y'all can go check that out. We're going to talk about that stuff specifically because I don't have a lot of answers for you there. We're going to go to the source and get answers for you there, okay? Now, let's talk some more about gameplay. The collidables, they actually make you feel way more permanence in the game. When I went to go mine on a belt in EVE Online, you typically go around the other side of the asteroid to make it so that the gankers can't really get to you, to make it so it's hard to get to you. In EVE Frontier, I actually was on the other side of the asteroid as a way of survival, hugging the asteroid, so now the collidables there, they can't shoot you, interact with you, unless they actually go around the other side of the rock. This made it really feel like I was on the belt. And this is one of my biggest complaints with EVE Online. I am used to games like Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars 2, World of Warcraft, ESO, New World, all these other MMOs where you're like in the system. Right there, you can feel like you're in the world, in the zone that you're in. Typically, as you're interacting with a UI, I don't necessarily have that connection. That feeling of permanence you get when you're in a zone, it just wasn't really there. EVE Frontier has that in spades because of the lack of zoom out and because you're actually on the belt and you really feel like you're in there on the belt with people. It's a good feeling. And because you can interact with the world as needed with the toggleable UI that we were talking about, I didn't miss the overlay. I kind of enjoy it actually. Going back to EVE Online, I'm like, man, I got to interact with stuff through a menu versus in the Frontier, I can just interact with the ship as the ship is. And here's one of my last notes for you. The game is still 3+ years out from being even remotely considered a fully fleshed out game. And that's not a bad thing. I got to tell you, let the devs cook. The game core is good. I'm enjoying my time. I want to see what the devs cook up. This could be the first ever play to earn game, and I like to leave you with something. There's a proverb that says the first person to get through the wall gets bit by the snake. And what I take that is the first person to do something new, the first person to push through a boundary, gets negatively impacted in strange ways. And I know we've seen a lot of Web3, crypto, whatever you want to call it, studios, games rise and fall. And no matter what happens, I'm going to report on it, good or bad. My priority is always you, the viewer. I'm so glad that I can be candid with y'all about this stuff for the first time and talk about the various systems that I've seen. I've been holding it in. I've been trying not to like reveal something that's against the NDA, you know. Well, let's see what they can do. If it's good, we'll report on it. And if it's bad, we'll report on it. Make sure you sub right here for the best EVE guides. And thanks very much. I will see you in the next video.